Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly podcast where members of Team MagicJank get together and we discuss the latest happenings in Magic the Gathering. My name is Graham. I go by Hammox42, and I'm joined by Carlo, C. Firefighter Jr. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Hello, everybody.
And as well as HollywoodPizza. Hollywood, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Been doing pretty good. Mostly just hanging out. Been enjoying the new cards that just came out.
Heck yes. And we're definitely going to be discussing that because we have new cards, and they are making waves, and they're doing things. And it's delightful, in my opinion. But we'll get more into that in a minute. But before we do that, I want to give a huge shout out and a huge thank you to MagicJank.com, the online marketplace where you can buy and sell Magic the Gathering products and gear, as well as all the official merch for members of Team MagicJank is also available out there. So definitely check that out. Thank you, MagicJank, for making it happen and for doing all the fun stuff that you do. So, Ixalan is here. We've been talking about it for a while because I feel like we've been going through spoilers for some time for this one, right? They did a big dump in Vegas about upcoming cards, got everybody excited, and then since then I feel like it's all we've been seeing and all we've been talking about. Although with like a seasoning of Doctor Who in there for good measure, which incidentally also had a bunch of dinosaurs. maybe there's a reason for that. But in any event, I kind of wanted to start off the podcast. I know we all have thoughts about the current state of the various formats and just thoughts about the game in general. And now is an interesting time because we have a standard that has been pretty, I don't know about stagnant, but it feels pretty static. Like the great cards are the great cards, and they have been for some time. And so how are we feeling now that Ixalan has entered the fray? I mean, for standard or even other formats. I'm just curious. So how are you guys feeling about things, at least 1 week in? How are we feeling right now about Ixalan?
I mean, I've been feeling personally pretty good. I mean, we've had a couple different events happen since we've last spoke. So like the streamer event, for example, we got to play a bunch of the different cards, see what type of an impact that those new cards would have on the current standard format. And I think the cards that we thought were going to be like the name players are definitely the name players. So talking about like removal spells like Get Lost, being how versatile that card is. It hits a creature, hits a planeswalker or an enchantment. And I think that card is huge to play against decks like the Domain Ramp deck, because you get to hit like Leyline Binding, and you get to hit the Beanstalk card, as well as just like obliterate Atraxa.
Or the Wandering Emperor. You hit it all. Yeah,
you hit it all. And and gives us another tool against like the Shieldred decks, for example. So that card has been a blast to play. There are some matchups where that card's not so great, right? So against the real aggressive decks that can take advantage of the map tokens, but against the bigger go wide decks, it's pretty sweet. Another card that's really impressed me is the Bonehorde Dracosaur. Being able to ramp early into that creature to get the card advantage and get the extra creatures out has been great. It definitely is a buffer against Shieldred Rafine decks, as long as they don't remove it from the board. But those have been like the top two cards I've enjoyed playing with so far.
I dig it. Well, and these are great calls, and actually the Bonehorde Dracosaur is an interesting one, because it kind of feels like Shieldred the Apocalypse. Like, if that thing is on the board, if your opponent sticks that, and it's not hard to get it out on turn 4 or even turn 3 if they hit the right sequence with the current ramp pieces. I know, right? And you have that feeling like, if I let them untap with that, I'm dead. Like, there is no way. The amount of advantage they're going to get is going to be too much for me to deal with.
Yep.
Yeah. So, no, you're right. And also, having a first strike flyer, there have been plenty of games where I've been in a situation where I've just been, okay, on their next attack, I'm dead. Top to Dracosaur. Maybe not, and yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah. So Hollywood, how about you, man? What are you feeling about how are you feeling about the new cards?
To start off with, I agree with the Dracosaur.
Right.
That was definitely a card that I said during the podcast specifically that card's the real deal. I don't care. Everyone kept saying, oh, it's overhyped. This is a card that I did not think was overhyped at all. I agree. There was a game where I had 2 of them out, and I can tell you, drawing 4 extra cards a turn, getting 2 treasures, and it was the game. They conceded after the first trigger, and that was pretty much it. But overall, I've been having a lot of fun with the Dino deck specifically. It's a deck that is really powerful out of the gate. Obviously, you're playing the Pugnacious Hammer Skull, I think is what the name of it is, into the fight rigging. And what I personally like to do is I'll play the whatever the one drop is into the
The
Pugnacious,
lore keeper. Yep.
into the fight rigging.
Mhm.
So you get your turn 3 Atali. Then off of your Atali, you hit Galta. And then off of Galta, you're able to play more Atalis and Geshaths. And then you get a bunch more triggers. You hit them with the Geshath, and then you hit more Atalis, of course, naturally.
Of course.
And other dinosaurs like the carnivorous uh, Tyrannosaurus, I think is what it is. I can't remember what it is, but that one's also like a legit card. With
Trumpeting
Discover
Carnosaur.
File.
Oh yeah.
What is it called?
Trumpeting Carnosaur.
yeah.
Yep.
But the Dino deck has been absolutely absurd. I'm almost a diamond with
Mm-hmm.
just that deck alone. Today on stream, though, we played a deck by Hearsay TTV, a great friend of ours. He gave me a Soul Tie list, and funny enough, I ran into a mirror match in the first match that we played, and I ran into that deck, I think, one more time. But the Soul Tie deck is the real deal. There was a game where I made like 6 or 7 legitimate easy mistakes that most of the time I wouldn't even like make.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt like I was like, I just kept making these terrible plays, but I just kept like winning. Like no matter what I did, I was accruing so much value that it just like didn't matter. And
I love that.
it was because of the tortoise. Also, there's a 3-mana card, Ham. I feel like you might remember the name of this. I don't know if you remember the name, Carlo, but it's a 3-mana. It's green-black colorless for a sorcery, and you return a permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield, where its mana cost is equal to the number of permanents in your graveyard.
Squirming Emergence.
Yes, Squirming
Emergence.
Yeah. So I played a
this
Squirming
card.
Emergence deck, and I couldn't lose with the deck. I only lost to
this
the
card
mirror
is
match.
insane.
Yeah.
I straight up lost to the mirror match, and this card
it.
is busted. Like what I was reanimating like Phyrexian Portals, the Black Virtue, and kind of just being able to reanimate Shieldred a couple times in a row, things like that. Like I can honestly tell you that Sultai deck had so much value, and I really think that with Ixalan, there's at least 2 or 3 decks that are gonna come. You know, once the dust settles, that are gonna show up, and I think that this card specifically, man, this card just feels unreal when you play it.
It's stupid. No, and I'm right there with you. I have a deck that I built around this card specifically because I was just like, I need to get in there. And I fully expect, like, I know that my particular build is not optimized yet. You know, like, I know it. I know it's not all the way there. But I've had a couple of games, exactly like you're saying, where I realized, like, oh, I should have played this first, or, oh, I could have sequenced my mana differently. And I realized, like, no, this is a genuine mistake. I am punting, but it doesn't matter. This thing just has so much stopping power. Like, even if I don't get every last ounce or every last drop of value out of this thing, I'm still gonna beat you. It's absurd.
It's this and the board wipe, right? The board wipe's really good too. Have you played the board wipe at all, either of you guys?
The
board wipe where it gives it -X equal to the permanents in your graveyard.
Terror Tide.
Terror Tide.
Yeah, that card is absurd. Like I had a game where it was the Dino deck, I think it was, and I needed to board wipe for like 7 or 8, and I had 9 permanents in the graveyard, so I just cast a Terror Tide and wiped the board, and then I was able to proceed to win the game after that because I obviously followed it up with the Tortoise, the Shieldred, and Glissa is finally seeing the play that she deserved to see, because it's a pretty busted card with First Strike, Death Touch, and in these black-green mid-range decks, we're really seeing that card. And I said today, I told someone straight up, I think Atali's a card that could be banned in Standard because it's just so absurdly powerful.
Don't you dare speak those words.
Yeah, don't you put that evil on us, Hollywood. Don't you dare.
There's games where
you're not wrong, but don't do that. Yeah, stop it. Don't give people ideas.
There's games where you play it and you get like the most busted thing out of your deck, and then you get their Atraxa, which is the most busted thing out of their deck, and they scoop. The game's just over.
Pretty much
at that point. If they don't have a Sunfall, they just lose the game. Like they're gonna take 14 or more, and you're gonna draw like 8 cards, and that's where Magic's at. Like Magic's just so absurd now, and that Dino deck, I can't get over how I have so much fun playing that deck.
Listen, y'all remember Fight Club, and you remember how I was playing week 2 a red-green ramp deck that we were playing Gruff Triplets at the time because, you know, Trumpeting Carnosaur didn't exist. Well, let's talk about how we can go Atali into Carnosaur that then gets me the Bonehorde Dracosaur on turn 5. If you don't got a Sunfall, you lose, right? And Grove
doing that on
Triplets
turn
was the
3.
threat that week,
And
right?
and that's good, but yeah,
You know,
It's
I mean,
standard's absurd right now.
it's
I think
silly.
standard is like in this crazy place where Eldraine's power level is now finally getting showcased better because there's more support cards to push some of these older cards out of the format. Like
yep,
Shieldred doesn't even they play like a Shieldred and I'm like, that's cool, man. I just put like 40 power on board. I guess you gotta deal with that.
yep.
And I know you don't have any board wipes, so my 13-13 or 12-12, whatever Galta is gonna come in and absolutely obliterate you in like 2 hits or whatever. Like it's or
Right.
1 hit even. Yeah,
Well,
I think
yeah.
this set really gave us a lot of new toys.
100%, and they support old toys in a really cool way. Like you mentioned Glissa, like she started seeing play I think when Restless Cottage came into the mix in Eldraine along and the Dread Knight, like all of a sudden Golgari was back on the menu, and so like she had a home finally. But we're seeing even more of that archetype getting boosted here. You know, you have cards like Shadows of the Lost if that's your jam, or you got like the big old Goyf, and like these domain or not domain, these descent decks with the Squirming Emergence. The top end power in there is absolutely busted, and on top of that, these cards help support each other in a really cool way. Like a card that I don't know if anybody here remembers from Streets of New Capenna that's in my Squirming Emergence deck, and if I may say, it is freaking savage. All-Seeing Arbiter. Does anyone out there remember this thing?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, it's a 6 it's a 6 mana value permanent. When you are aggressively milling yourself with cards like Founding the Third Path and so a lot of the 2-drop creatures like Undead Butler and things, get all of a sudden Squirming Emergence on 3. Like turn 3, you can reanimate this thing. Like it's
You
stupid.
should try the Tarmogoyf that copies itself from Midnight Hunt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh my goodness, the consuming blob. Oh man.
Yeah.
I haven't. That's one of those cards that yeah, that's one of those cards that I remember trying to build around when Midnight Hunt first dropped, bashing my head against that roll for a couple hours and saying nope, like this card just doesn't have it.
I
Especially
think this
because
card could shine now, right?
maybe because but yeah, back when it first came out, Asika's Chariot was still live. And so every time I did anything with consuming blob, it was just like, I could just be playing Chariot. Why am I doing this? Like,
You know what I really like about Lost Caverns at Ixalan is that it's showcasing exactly what Wizards or the play team wanted when they decided that they wanted standard rotation to be longer. Because we're actually seeing cards get played more now that wouldn't normally get played and didn't get played in the past
Yep.
because there wasn't enough support for them. And now, because there is, all of a sudden, not only are the new cards getting played, but they're combining with the old cards and they're making this interesting format where Standard's becoming even more diverse. And I think Standard was already, right now, Standard's the best format, and I don't really care what anybody says. Like, if we're going to talk about actual constructed, competitive constructed formats, like Standard's probably the best. You can play like 7 or 8 decks, and they're all legitimate decks. There's all these cards coming in all the time that make the format better, and
Yep.
it's just incredible.
yeah.
You know, on the emergence train here, for early access, I remember I had played the streamer event. I had played a couple of like self mill strategy decks, and speaking on Hollywood's point of highlighting past cards that otherwise wouldn't have gotten played, Urborg Lurgoyf.
Yep.
Right, from Dominaria United wasn't really out there and played. And you can definitely play a self-mill strategy that is a mixture of that Lurgoyf. You get the Cruel Somnophage from Wilds of Eldraine. You have the Souls of the Lost now from Ixalan. So you legitimately can have 3 different Goyf type effects. They all fill your yard. You can play Emergence to reanimate the Chupacabra card for 4, which literally is just going to kill every creature on the board, and you tap out at that 4 mana cost effect, and it's just really good.
Oh yeah, no, it's silly. That's fantastic. Yeah, so I wonder, is wholesale graveyard hate going to become more common? Because we've seen some of it. You know, we see cards like Frill.
Hearse is going to make a comeback.
Yeah, the Tranquil Frillback. We've seen Hearse in the past, and in older formats, Hearse is, is definitely a sideboard staple. And so is that going to start becoming a thing again in Standard. I don't know. I'll be very interested to see, because right
I
now
think
we
the
are
graveyard's
still
been good for a while in Standard.
true.
You know, like Cruelty of Gix is one of my favorite strategies, and I think it's underplayed. Like I had a Grixis deck that I was like just couldn't lose with. That was just reanimating a Trex on turn 5 all the time, and
Yeah.
you know, still playing cards like Corpse Appraiser. I really think that the format's so deep that I think there's so many decks people aren't even playing and brewing with yet, and it's great. That's a really good sign for the format, and especially a format where cards get banned all the time. All the time there's a ban.
Well,
And right now the Shieldred ban talks are kind of quiet.
Yeah, and honestly, like, yeah, losing to a Shieldred, we're tired of it, but it's not happening enough to be problematic at this point. I don't, you know, like she made a huge splash the day she came in. Honestly, I think the effect of Wandering Emperor, Leyline Binding, and Sunfall are more impactful on the meta than Shieldred is at this point. And even then, is it enough to be like problematic? I don't know. I'm sick of Sunfall, but the way that I've phrased it before is that I can't make a logical argument for if they should ban Sunfall, but if they did, I wouldn't be mad. You know, that's where I'm at with it. Like but that's personal taste. It's not like I'm not saying it's bad for the format necessarily.
It just seems some kind of dirty when you could have Up the Beanstalks in play, cast a 5-mana Wrath spell, draw 2 cards, and get a creature after. That's a little dirty.
Yeah, it's absurd.
It's a little too much.
It's absurd.
But that's Beanstalk though.
Yeah, Beanstalk
that generally comes down to Beanstalk.
But
Beanstalk is the linchpin that makes that whole deck
good.
Unfair in a way that it wasn't before. Yeah.
The same deck plays Leyline Binding that like does the same. So it's like you can't escape it. And that's why I think cards like Get Lost should just definitely be a staple, like 10 times better than Fateful Absence.
Oh, easy. Yeah,
but it's a little wonky.
We're already at a point right now where you need to be running main deck Duresses, counter spells, and or like wholesale like enchantment destruction. Like Destroy Evil is like a 3 of in like main decks of just about any white deck right now. Like just do it, it will find targets. Like it doesn't matter what you're going up against. And if you happen to go like even if you go up against like the Golgari list, which is whittling you away with Dread Knights and Glissas, even those have the Restless Cottage, which is a perfectly fine hit, or the Virtue of Persistence, which they might get to later, you know? So, like...
Or the new card, the Restless, the blue-black one that makes the shark.
Yeah,
I was playing that card today, and that card was, like, really, really powerful.
It's solid, yeah.
And the self-mill strategy.
Oh my goodness, yeah. If you've got a couple of Goist online, and, like, you swing and then mill yourself for some more, like, yeah, you're having a good time. Yeah, absolutely. But, so on the point of Leyline Binding, I just want to ask, do you guys remember when Banishing Light was premium removal in Standard?
Oblivion Ring,
Oblivion Ring. Yeah, Oblivion Ring being the
Ring
one of the best removal spells ever. You were like, whoa, this card hits everything, and it's an enchantment. No one plays enchantment removal, and nowadays everyone plays artifact enchantment removal, and 3 mana is like way too slow, and sorcery speed. Why would you even play it?
Why would you do this
anymore?
We have cards like this. Like we have Borrowed Time, still legal in Standard. Nobody cares. Like it's funny because Banishing, I believe Banishing, was it Banishing Light or was it a different one? Was still legal when that got printed, and I remember thinking, or no, it wasn't Banishing Light, but I remember when that came back, I was like, we just got rid of Banishing Light. Why are we reprinting it? No, we're gonna be dealing with this. Nobody plays Borrowed Time.
The one gets played in from Kamigawa from Neon Dynasty gets played in the enchantment deck.
Touch the Spirit Realm.
Yeah, because it's like a protection spell or removal spell at instant speed.
That one is it's
or the
far more
flexibility
flexible
of actually being like a hard removal spell at sorcery speed. So that flexibility alone lets you know where those enchantment removal spells need to be.
Yeah. But then you also have the added bonus of synergizing with Calyx and the the Generous Visitor and the like. So you get all kinds of value off that. It fits the theme well. But yeah, even then, it has to be doing something else. Like, just to remove the thing isn't enough. Yeah.
Can we talk about creature lands for a second? I think creature lands are back and making a really big impact. I know the blue-white one is really good. It was played against me and definitely was one of the reasons my opponent was able to beat me. I've seen the green-white one as well. The red-green one, obviously in the dinosaur deck. I added one to my deck. I don't like them because they come into play tapped. Obviously, if they were the only option, then I would have to play them. But because rotation didn't happen, we have the best mana base ever Standard's probably ever had outside of fetch lands. And
it's true.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. So I have like no trouble playing. I'd
Mhm.
rather have better mana than this card, and this card isn't even that impressive. This is just a 4 mana 3/4. So by
Yeah,
itself,
Restless Ridgeline. It's a 4 mana 3/4,
by
and when
itself,
it
this card
attacks
does not
another
really
attacking
cut it.
creature, gets +2/+0, and then you untap it, so it gives like quasi vigilance. Um,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like
it's
Ridgeline's
fine.
great.
it's
Like
fine.
I'm in love with a couple of these.
Yeah, like one or
Yeah,
two in,
exactly.
in a deck makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. You don't want to go for 4 of these, which is
Right.
funny because you see like the Golgari deck go for Restless Cottage, and part of the reason for that is like it doesn't have a fast land,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. No, anyway, like the
No, it
dual
doesn't
lands.
have a fast lane right
Yeah, it
now in
doesn't. That's what.
standard.
Okay, I'm second guessing myself. But yeah, they don't have a fast land. They're like the dual options are kind of limited, so you have to just necessary evil run a few more tap lands than you would necessarily like. And Restless Cottage in that particular deck is so stinking good.
Oh, that card. It's a 4/4 though.
It's a
Like
4/4
the
exactly.
difference is
It's
that
it's a 4/4 that hates on graveyards and leaves material behind. Like it does it
yep.
all.
Yep.
It does all the things you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, Graveyard Hate. It makes a free
Mm-hmm.
token. Like it's very reminiscent of the Eye of the Hive Tyrant in the sense that,
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, 4/4 and Menace are almost the same thing. You
Similar.
need two 2/2s or a 3/3 and a 2/2 to double block this 4/4 to kill it. Same thing you needed for the Hive of the Eye Tyrant. You needed at least something to double block it just to kill it. Even
Yep.
that card saw tons of play. It had a really good, trigger ability whenever it attacked. Obviously, removing a card from the graveyard's great. And Restless Cottage, I think, is another card that I think they're both like almost the same card. They really feel so similar. And 4/4 is nothing to laugh at. When that card's punching me in the face, like I almost lost to just their Restless Cottage today when I was playing against the green black deck. I got
I
really
don't doubt it.
close, and that speaks volumes to how powerful that one is. But I think that's why I think Ridge and a few other ones aren't as good, is because they're not that good by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like the green blue one, the Vine Stalk, I think is what
Mm-hmm.
it is. That one's a good card, but once again, you need a creature. And let's be honest here, later in the game when you're activating for like 6 mana, you're already gonna have like a 7/7 or like an 8/8. You're gonna play T-Rex, you're gonna play a Tali, you're gonna play a Trex. So like, you're gonna have all these cards that are way more relevant than making one of my cards have base power and toughness 5/5, or however big it is. It's like
Yeah, 3/3. So like
3/3.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
if
like,
you
yeah,
have
that's
like
cool, but
if you
yeah.
have like a Hydra or something that is 0/0 base stats with stuff on it, like yeah, that's a notable boost, but yeah, more likely they've just wiped the board and you're trying to get in for those last few points of damage,
Hmm.
and that trigger does nothing. That's very common,
Yeah, they need
unfortunately.
to be good by themselves, though. I
Yeah,
think them not being good by themselves is what's determining which ones of these get played.
yeah,
Which is why I think the blue white one's good, the red black one's great, the blue black one's been fantastic, and obviously Restless Cottage is another one that's
yeah. That one is just.
probably just going to be around until it rotates.
I think so.
Honestly,
Yeah, as long as green and black are viable, that's not going anywhere, and I
but
think that
to your
that's
Sunfall
going to be the
point,
case. Yeah.
I think the creature lands are a great counteraction to whenever your opponent's tapping out with their Sunfalls,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. And because there's a lot of artifact based removal, it's easier to destroy the token post combat, all kinds of stuff like that. Like I really think standard is just in a really great spot, and Lost Caverns at Ixalan I think really added even more to the format. It's crazy, the set hasn't broken yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything so far, no one's really come out with any crazy combos outside of like these Kentorius canned combos where you make like infinite Kentoriuses and burn your opponent out or whatever.
Sign me up.
Sure.
But
I've
um,
definitely had a couple of games where my opponent has like had Quint down and then like discovered 2 or 3 times. Then it's just like, oh, dang, like that. I've seen that happen. It is interesting to see, but yeah, I don't know if that's going to be main. I don't know that anybody's going to
mhm.
be winning tournaments with that deck. I don't know. We'll see, but it feels like a gimmick to me.
It's a
But
really good deck.
some gimmicks have won some big things, so you know,
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I
yeah,
really think that and it's funny, like I miss the days when there was a combo deck. I think
yeah,
people get so upset and they want cards banned so much that they've almost banned aggro and combo out of the format.
hmm
Like the only decks that exist are like these crazy mid-range piles or this mid-range deck that's a ramp deck and just these focused mid-range decks. Like it's not even like there's actual different variety of deck styles to play. It's just
yep,
that there's a bunch of different mid-range decks, which is fine because it leads to a lot of interactive Magic, but I really miss like when red deck was pretty good, and
Yeah.
I honestly miss a combo deck when you had a clock on you and you had to know how to play Magic rather than like kind of just. I mean, mid range is a lot harder to play through, but I miss combo.
Yeah, well, and I think if I only had to pick one style of Magic to play for the rest of ever and be matched up against, I would probably pick mid-range, but I get bored of it really fast. And that's actually one thing that I want to touch on as far as Standard is concerned, because, you know, you're saying that you think Standard's in a good place, and I feel like mathematically Standard has been in a good place for a long time. However, to your point, the idea of different deck styles, that's something that Best of 3 Magic has been missing pretty dramatically. Because I've definitely had times when I've been, like, going to my sideboard, and I'll have the moment of, like, all right, I'm going up against Esper, and then look back and realize, oh, it was Dimir. It's like, okay. Like, it just felt the same. You know? It's like, it was a lot of the same pieces were coming together. It was, like, a lot of the same removal package. You know, I had to deal with a lot of the same threats. And you know, at the end of the day, like, if you're in white, it's a Wandering Emperor deck. If you're in black, it's been Sheoldred decks. Fortunately, we're seeing a shift there, which makes me very happy. But, you know, if you're in Esper, it's some kind of Rafine shell, right? And you have all of the things. And then you probably have Wedding Announcement, Virtue of Loyalty's in there now, too. And, like, you're probably going to see Lord Skitter. Like, I don't know. Just the feel of just, I have good 2-mana removal, and I have good 3-drop threats, and I'm going to play mine out. You're going to play your removal on mine. You're going to play out your threats. I'm going to play my removal on yours. We're going to get to turn 6, and whoever top decks the stuff that they need wins the game. And when you play so many of those games back to back to back to back, it doesn't matter if you saw 8 different decks, technically.
Yeah.
It felt like you did the same thing the whole day.
It's so draining too.
It can be exhausting. And so what I'm really hopeful for, and I'm starting to see it here, we're seeing decks that are experimenting with aggro. Like, actually, I built a one of my patrons and stream regulars, Else89, love the dude, he's great. But he's been pushing to make mono green aggro a thing, and like every now and then he'll use his Patreon privileges in my stream to be like, you're playing mono green aggro today, and I'm like, why do I offer that? All right, here we go. And so we just play mono green aggro, and recently it's been like, this is really bad. I don't like this. This is not working. Like, it's just not lining up well because removal's too good. But we recently picked up, I recently built an angle on it that was leaning into all the dinosaur synergies. And that deck has some legs. Like, definitely in best of 1. Like, that thing, all of a sudden, you know, you got your Lore Keepers, you got your Pugnacious Hammer Skulls. The Hulking Raptor is one that I was shocked at how good that thing is. Like, I need to talk about that for a second, because I looked at this thing, and my immediate reaction is, it is a 4-drop that dies to Lightning Strike. This is an unplayable card. And then like, upon further examination, wait a minute, this has Ward 2. This does not die to Lightning Strike. Not at first, anyway. Let's go!
Yeah, or the fact that you make them pay 4 for Go for the Throat. And
Exactly.
then you're still ahead at the end of it all, right? Because they've now, you've time walked them
Pretty
when
much.
that happens. Because then you start your next turn, and you're still at 5 mana, presumably, and then you cast your next threat.
Great.
And it's like, okay, do you have more removals?
Yeah.
Or what have you? But yeah, I agree, 100%. I think the green decks can do better, with more of the ramp strategy, and so it begs the question for me anyway, like, do you just go wide with the ramp strategies for green? Is that what's just going to do best? Or
It's possible.
do you try to form this aggro type strategy? And I know you all know who GoCalper is, but GoCalper, even before Ixalan, had been submitting mono green decks for me to play over on my channel regularly. And most of them had to do with legendaries, right? So we were playing cards like Sir Ginger, Kodama from Kamigawa, and then playing the 4-mana sorcery that has my creature deal twice damage to you if it's a legendary creature. Forgive me that I don't remember the name offhand.
Animus
but
Might,
it's from
is that the one?
Yes, Animus
From
Might.
Aftermath?
That's right. That's from
Aftermath?
Aftermath.
Yeah.
And
One of the
we
better
had-
bite spells we've seen in a hot minute, honestly. But yeah.
Yeah, and this costs like 1 green, and it kills Sheoldred, right? Even
can kill the tracks if you got a big enough chunker lying around. Yeah,
it sure can. And so that's the strategy we were playing pre-Ixalan. And kind of to the point earlier, I think Ixalan's allowing us to now expand on all of those possibilities of those decks, sort of revitalizing green as a playable like base strategy. So yeah, I'm excited to see what we got cooking going forward.
heck yeah.
Oh,
I also
yeah,
just
definitely.
yeah, in general, I think combining ramp and aggression is all of a sudden a viable strategy. Because I know I've definitely had it where it's Lore Keeper into Topiary Stomper into Hulking Raptor into turn 4 Tyrannex Rex. Like, you're gonna crush all of your opponent's dreams if you're doing crap like that. And yeah, it's and that's I feel like Wizards has identified, okay, green's identity is it can make mana and its stats are big. And I feel like they finally realized like how much bigger the stats need to be in order to be relevant in today's Magic. And the answer is a lot.
That's like a really good point.
They gotta be a lot bigger. and they're delivering. And
Well, Ward
it's
is a great way to really give a creature the ability to stick around.
yes. Oh my goodness,
And
yes.
not only because that card's not unkillable, right? Back in the day, that card would have hexproof, and we would hate it. We'd be like,
Oh
I
my
can't
god, yeah.
believe they printed this card as hexproof. But nowadays, with Ward, you're right. Even if you're on the opposing side of this, you're like, I could go for the throw it for 4 and do that at instant speed, and at least I use my mana efficiently to kill it.
Right.
And,
yeah,
you know,
it
if you
doesn't
have a
feel
board
great,
wipe,
but I
the
can
ward
do
doesn't
it.
matter at all.
Like, yeah, I
You
have
just
the option.
Sunfall. You just play Farewell. Like,
Yeah, or even
you don't
something
really
simple
care,
as
you know? So there's like a
Brotherhood's End even
balance,
hits
you know?
this pretty badly. But yeah. But it's you gotta be hyper specific in your removal for it. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's all in its own balance. And as a mono green player myself, I'm happy to see that there's finally some love coming back for the forest. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, when removal's good, you need to have these abilities on these creatures. And I think this is the best example of a card that feels very pushed, right? Like it's on rate, right? 4 mana, 5 power, 3 toughness. Yeah, it dies a lot of 3 damage spells, but
Yeah, and
you know what? It's got ward and it ramps you, right?
yeah, and it
Yep.
has it has the 5 power, so you want to be attacking if the board is clear. But if the board is not clear, you're almost never going to attack with this thing because if anything happens in combat, it is screwed. And so it's in this weird dynamic where it's like, yeah, it's 5 power, but how much do you really want to use it? Do you want to lose this guy?
Listen, 3 toughness, 3 power is still like if this trades with a graveyard trespasser, I don't really care.
Yeah. Oh, in many
Right?
situations,
That's the
that's
thing.
great.
That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing. Like I think even if this card quote unquote trades down in mana, trades down in stats, I actually think this card's still great because once you've used all that mana, this card is just going to start attacking because it's 5 power. So
Sure.
But
Yeah,
also,
once your hands empty, get
talk
him in there,
about
yeah.
how good that is to attack through or leave back to be able to block Shieldred.
100%.
Because that's how relevant that 5 power is.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. That's huge. Also, I just got to say, I love asymmetrical type lines or power stat lines. Keep them coming and like get weird with it. Like 5/3, that's kind of goofy, but like for 4 mana, it fits. Like I love it. Keep this kind of stuff coming. Give me 7 1s. I don't care. Let's go.
yeah,
Like let's get weird.
This card's
Yeah.
just great.
I'm here. I'm here for it. Yep.
I'm glad to see green. And I'm also glad to see fight rigging finally being the card that I thought it was going to be. Like,
Yeah.
man, with Pugnate, like, I
Yeah.
know that it's still like a pipe dream, but it's not a pipe dream for me. Like, I
No, it's
seriously
not.
get a
It's
tally
not a
on
pipe dream
turn
at all.
3,
It's
like,
very real. Yep.
all the time. Yeah, Ham
No,
knows. Like, it's just
I've been
gonna
forcing
happen.
I've been forcing fight rigging for some time. They've given us a lot of 3 and 4 mana, like 6 power things. You know, we have the Arc Feet of the Dross, we have the Sweet Tooth, we've got like there are a lot of cards out there that can activate fight rigging, but by themselves they're not wonderful. Like you
Right.
want to have some kind of support for those creatures. Hammer Skull is just a big sack of stats. That downside is very minimal. It's just like I just
Yeah,
get
I
it,
win when I play
just
like
run
2
it
of
out
them in a
and
row.
yeah.
It's like, here's 2 6/6s. Deal with it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. Like if you hide away and your best option is the Hammer Skull, you don't feel bad. If in the past, if you have the fight rigging shakedown heavy combo and you hit the hideaway and your best option is shakedown heavy, that feels terrible because like that thing's not gonna win you the game. It literally can't. Your opponent can just give you more cards. Whereas with Hammer Skull, no, this is a 6/6. You're taking it. This is how this goes.
Yeah, most green creatures are going to be big enough that they just need like 1 or 2 activations of a fight rigging for you to get your free spell, so it still doesn't even feel that bad. I think
Yeah.
fight rigging's finally in a good home where it's like either in a gruel shell or more in like this mono green shell where
Yeah. You can do
able to
mono green action with it.
maximize
Yeah,
all
it's
those possibilities.
100%. It's all wide open right now. I love it.
I think the biggest thing for green going forward, if you want to play it as a solid one color versus adding another color for the wide game, I think mono green needs to be more of that ramp side. And I think it needs to choose its win conditions correctly. So whether you are ramping to Tyrannix Rex, which definitely is a threat, right? I mean, we know that. Um, or if it wants to start ramping to things like Cityscape Leveler, or even the amalgam from Brothers War, like being able to play that and
Kind of
getting a bunch of
industry.
golems, right? Right, Titan of Industry. It reminds me, and I'm very reminiscent of Battle for Zendikar standard when mono green was a thing, right? Like you just ramp, Ulamog, right? Same game plan. You knew what you were doing. I think because you have cards like um, Glimpse, it's the 2 mana card. It's like Glimpse the Core. It's like 2 mana
Yeah, the ramping
sorcery,
bro.
search for a cave, or I'm sorry, search for a basic forest and put it into play.
Yep.
For 2. And I think something that's super important in this standard format, that it's extended standard and there's infinite removal, is playing cards that get you guaranteed mana. And when I'm saying guaranteed mana, I'm saying when you play the card, you're up a mana source. And whether or not the card you played dies. So, for example, Charming Scoundrel is guaranteed mana. Bramble Familiar is not. Scrap Gorger is not, right? Topiary Stomper gets you the land.
Yep.
Glimpse gets you the land. As long as you can avoid removal, play your payoff where your payoff is resilient to the removal, I think is the proper way to go.
Oh, 100%. Honestly, I think actually Glimpse of the Core is a great shout out because it's kind of a stripped down Rampant Growth, and I feel like Rampant Growth is a highly underrated card. It just in general. I mean, the archetype ramp is named after it, for goodness sake. I mean, it's a really cool card. And if you're not familiar, Rampant Growth, it's just 1 and a green sorcery. Go find a basic land from your deck, just anywhere in your library, and just put it on the battlefield tapped.
Yep.
It just does the thing that you want it to do, and it just you take turn 2 off, and all of a sudden on turn 3 you have 4 mana. And it's basic land, so it also helps set domain and all that jazz. Now with Glimpse of the Core, it's only forests, and it's only basic forests beyond that, which is a pretty significant, it's a significant downside. But, if you're in a mono green, whatever. Like, you were going to go grab a forest anyway.
I mean,
so,
you throw
Right.
a couple of those Discover lands that are caves, you can get them back with Glimpse the Core. I actually played 4 of this in my dinosaur deck. It's a card that I've been waiting for it to come out, just because I think right now the most important thing in Standard is getting from 2 mana to 4 mana, and it comes with like Carlos saying that guarantee that I'm going to hit that 4th mana.
Yep.
You need to hit your Invasion of Zendikar. You need to hit the dinosaur that we just talked about. I can't remember, the Hulking Raptor.
The Hulking Raptor, yeah. Oh, Hulking
You
Raptor
need
on
to
turn
hit
3
these
is
cards
amazing.
all on
oh
time.
my goodness, yes. Yeah.
For me, it's like I need to hit the Dracosaur, right? Like I play my 1 mana Accelerant, I Glimpse the Core, I play Dracosaur, and it's like, oh, this feels great. Like I just like got a huge turn 3. Like I really think that there's just like so many strategies. There's just like so much stuff to do, and I think that the cave deck is a deck that, since we're talking about this card specifically, like I said, like you throw a couple of those caves that discover in your deck, and then later in the game, this card is gas, right? Like this card starts turning into spells, right? It's no longer like, oh, I
That's
just
true.
get my basic forest. Instead, it's like, oh, I get this discover land that, yeah, it's going to come into play tap, but, next turn I'm going to start to get a spell off of it, whereas my opponent's still trying to top deck. And if you're in these top deck battles, like you're saying, I'd rather be in a top deck battle with my lands are actually getting spells, and I have spells in my deck that can keep churning through and fishing for cards that are more playable.
Yep.
And I think Glimpse the Core is a great example of a card that, depending on what deck you're trying to build, you can get both uses out of it or each one separately and still feel like you're getting maximum value out of a card that's only 2 mana. We got to remember a lot of these cheap cards are just really, really great, especially in Standard. You're right. Like, I remember Return to Ravnica Standard. If we're going to reminisce, I remember Return to Ravnica Standard where the whole format was defined by Farseek. Every deck was a Farseek deck. and because you can get your shock land,
Yep.
right? You can fix your mana like perfectly. Oh, and Jund, I can go get my Overgrown Tomb or my Stomping Ground. Oh, and some of these other Soul Tide decks, right? I can get my my Watery Grave, and I can get all these other lands. Like, I think that having these 2-mana accelerants, and I think like green's back, but green's not back in the same way that it's been back for the last 3 years. The last 3 years has been like, oh, here's Stompy, here's
Mm-hmm.
Rum Tea Green. We're gonna come in and we're gonna beat you down. Instead, nowadays, it's ramp, right? Like you could argue that one of the best decks in the format, 5-color domain, is just a really good green deck. It's 5-color green.
Kinda, yeah.
And the best deck that you end up, the best card you play happens to be a 3-color card. But in order to get there, you got to play your Topiary Stomper, you got to play your Invasion Zendikar, and you got to make sure that you play your Herd Migration on 2 so you
Yep.
can gain enough life to survive that aggro deck and then be able to Sunfall before you Atraxa. So I think that you guys are right. Green's back, but I think Green is back in the ramp way. And in all honesty, it's probably been like 3 years at least since we've seen a good ramp deck. Last time there was a good ramp deck, they had to ban cards out of it.
Yeah.
We had Growth Spiral and
And
Splendid Reclamation.
and
I
that's
think,
part
right?
of the reason they stayed away from ramp for so many years, because of how strong the archetype is.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense, and that's why whenever we do see a 1-mana mana dork these days, it comes the first one we've seen in a long time in standard just showed up. It has massive caveats associated with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't dare print like Elvish Mystic or Llanowar Elves back into standard,
Oh,
right?
never. Yeah. Could you
It's too
imagine?
powerful.
Yeah. No,
But
I
they
would
did
love
here.
that. It'd
They
make me
did
happy.
here with Llanowar Elves. They pretty much gave us a Llanowar Elf for Dinosaur, and
For
I
dinosaurs.
can tell you that deck feels ramped up. I'm not the only one playing it on the ladder.
Oh, for sure. No, and
I've
I've
seen a
got
few
one.
people play
Yeah.
it, and I think that's cool. I think it's definitely a boost Magic needs. I think that there's definitely ways to reprint, quote unquote, pseudo reprint some of these old powerful cards in a way that they aren't game breaking.
Yeah.
Right? We definitely see that with the, like I'm saying, the Llanowar Elf card for dinosaurs. There's a few other cards right now that I can't think about. I mean, even a card like Besaju's kind of like that, where you're giving like an effect like naturalize a different way of getting around things. And speaking of getting around things, can we talk about how good Cavern of Souls is? Like, I'm
sure
so
can.
happy that I don't have to worry about Make Disappear and Disdainful Stroke when I'm playing my Dino deck. It's just like, oh, I play this card, and then my opponent just says, oh, this is really bad. I played it against Mono Blue, and it felt really good.
Oh man, there's
Yeah,
something.
have you guys
Oh,
played this card, or
you better
how do you
believe
guys
I
feel
have.
about it?
Oh my god, I reserve. Okay, so when a new set comes out, a lot of time I will buy a bunch of packs and I will dive in, open a whole bunch, and I also love the mythic packs on Arena. They make this a lot easier to do. But in any event, so I buy a whole bunch and just crack, and then I try to save and hoard my wild cards as much as possible. After the first wave of packs, I only had like one Cavern of Souls, and I looked up, and sure enough, like 5 mythic wild cards. Like, well, 3 of those are going into here. Let's go. Because if you're running any kind of typo strategy, and yeah, the dinosaur deck especially, oh my goodness, it feels good. Because all of a sudden, like, Make Disappear on 2 has been the thing that has just stymied a lot of aggressive strategies. The blue decks, or, even decks like the soldier decks, they'll keep up their resolute reinforcements and a counterspell. If you try to play a good 2 or 3 drop, at that point, they just counter it. And that sucks, man. But all of a sudden now, being able to play out the Pugnacious Hammerskull even on turn 2, and to see that little red "you can't touch this" aura on Arena, oh, it feels so good. It's so good. I love
My
it.
favorite
Yeah,
is the
this guy's
sound
not-
effect that goes womp womp.
Yo,
womp,
yep.
womp.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful thing, honestly. Yeah. So, no,
I
Cavern is
actually got
fantastic.
myself in trouble where I tried to counter Pugnacious on the other side.
I believe
off of the
it.
Cavern, and so I did it, and then I was like, "What happened?"
Yeah, are you
And Cat was
sure?
like,
Yeah,
"Cavern
of course.
Souls,"
Why would I
and was
not
like,
be?
"Oh
Right.
yeah." I was like, "Oh no, I can't
Yep.
believe I did that." But
We've all had
I'm happy
we've
to
all
see
gotten
this
one. It's
card.
fine.
Definitely. I think this card's gonna get played a lot of different decks. Let's not forget this card makes Atraxa uncounterable.
Yes, that.
Um,
Yeah, naming
it also
Angel in the
makes it
domain
so
deck
that
is
you can
horrifying.
play the 3-color decks a lot easier, right? Like you're saying, like your creature type deck
Mm-hmm.
is a lot easier to play at 3 or 4 colors because now you just have Cavern of Souls and you just play it all the time and it's not legendary. And
Did
I'm really
fairies,
happy to see this card.
Did fairies become better because of this? Or did they get completely screwed because everybody can run this?
I think they got a little bit screwed
Okay.
because a lot of their strategy was built around the new 2 mana leak.
Sure.
And now that
Yes,
mana
Phil
leak
Sutter.
doesn't matter because,
Mhm.
talk about a creature type deck. I just play this card in any deck, right? Like, you just play this card in so many different strategies
Right.
because, like,
You can, yeah.
it just makes your cards uncounterable. There's a reason that this card gets played with Primeval Titan. You're just like, I guess I'm
Sure.
naming Giant and just, resolving my 6 mana 6/6 with Trample and then winning the game with the 2 lands that I go get. I think this card's really impactful. I think it's it feels like a semi mistake in Standard. But I hate counterspells so much that I don't care. And that's
Well,
kind of just how I feel, and most
that's
people
hilarious.
probably feel about it.
I find it funny
So-
though, because counterspells have become very they become ubiquitous, but the reality is they're also like not great right now. I mean, we're at a point right now where like a really crappy mana leak is a good counterspell in Standard, which
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like I think Make Disappear is a very strong card and it is a very good card. The thing about Make Disappear, honestly, I wish more people took advantage of being able to counter multiple things on the stack. Like, I wish that happened more often because that is a really cool thing. When your opponent casualties an Obnixilis, and then you casualty something and counter both of them, oh man, if you've never done that, it feels fantastic. I highly recommend get on it. Because most people just assume it means, oh, if I casualty it, I counter this unless they pay 4. Which is true. That is obviously a very common use case for it. But it is more flexible than that. And as a result, I really like that design. All the same, 90% of the time, it's just Quench. And it's just, I'm going to stymie your 3-drop play on turn 2, and that's that. Or in aggressive strategies, it's become super important. And between that and Protect the Negotiators, just if you try to Sunfall me, I have an answer, and that's it. And so in those cases, honestly, I don't think Cavern of Souls makes that big of a difference. Like types right now aren't that common, and like if I'm going up against humans, yeah, being able to counter something on turn 2 or 3, like being able to like catch Adeline on her way down, yeah, that'd be nice, obviously. But if it doesn't
Not
happen,
anymore.
I'm gonna try to set up a board wipe next turn anyway, because otherwise I'm kind of screwed, right?
Yeah,
It's just
board wipe or bust now.
pretty much, yeah. And so now we're
guess
just at
what?
that
The
point.
aggro deck can play counterspells.
Yep.
The aggro deck can play counterspells and
The
get you now
aggro decks
as a
have to
control
play
player.
counterspells. Yeah,
Yeah.
aggro decks right now have to play counterspells. And that's the thing. And the reason that I think the dinosaur deck all of a sudden has game is not that they have an answer to Sunfall. They don't. Like, the dinosaur deck does not have a clean answer to Sunfall.
Yeah, it is. You play more dinosaurs.
Well, the answer to Sunfall is deal 30 damage to your opponent by turn 4 so they can't cast it. Like, that's how you do it, right? And just smash them before they get a chance to play it. And honestly, that might work. Like, I think it is powerful enough right now and fast enough that it might be able to do that.
I beat 3 board wipes the other day. They went Sunfall, Farewell, Farewell, and then I still played a Galta. I still played 3 creatures out of my hand, and they like proceeded to rope me because they knew.
Love it.
I literally still beat them with like 40 power on board, and they couldn't do
it.
anything at all. It was just like, and honestly, a lot of the power was Cavern of Souls because it fixes my colors, and it makes it so that like those Make Disappears just like sit in their hand for the whole game and do nothing.
Yeah. Just do
I
nothing.
tell you though, something I'm excited to try, because do remember we still have cards like Field of Ruin and Demolition Field still in the format.
Yep.
So typically when you have a format that Cavern of Souls is relevant in, playing those types of lands to blow it up if you want to be the control deck is very relevant.
There's a new one too. There's a new one that gives you a treasure as a key.
Volatile Fault. Yep.
Yes, but it doesn't replace your land source. So you're
No.
down the
Right,
land, but
right,
you're up
right.
a treasure, which in the end might be fine. But I'm
there's a
just
cost-benefit
curious.
situation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious if there is room for like a Dimir deck again in Standard that's like kind of controlling. But if you remember pre-Wilds of Eldraine Dimir, I'm curious if that deck can fit like Field of Ruin in it to deal with Cavern and still play the removal counter game, and
That'd be
then
tricky.
finish with your payoff. It might be hard. I'm wondering if it works because that deck was okay against the domain decks, but Beanstalk threw a curve. there. The card advantage
Yeah,
is real.
Beanstalk is so nuts. Like, I add Beanstalk to any deck with green now. And,
Yeah, you pretty much should.
It does not disappoint at all.
Yeah.
Casting those free Italis and those Galtas and all that other nonsense. Refilling your hand. That's how I beat the Feral. That was because I kept fight rigging them, right? And Itali. So every time that was all happening, I would draw like 2 or 3 cards. So like it didn't matter that they kept board wiping me because I just had Beanstalk, and it's like, oh, I refill, and then I play another free 7/7. Oh, and then I get 2 more 7/7s, and it's like, okay, yeah, you board wiped, but I drew 3 cards off of what I just did, so I just do it again, and then I do it again, and then I do it again, and it's like, oh my god, can you just stop? Like, I just feel like this card is. Can we just take a second and talk about this card? Like, this card is just like,
this card's
so
stupid.
dumb. So
It's
dumb.
ridiculous. And
It's like a mythic.
honestly,
mythic
yeah,
rare.
and it should have been templated, because right now it says whenever you cast a spell with mana value 5 or greater. The way they should have written that is whenever you spend 5 mana or more to cast a spell. And there's precedent for that, by the way. That's not something that I'm just pulling out of thin air.
Emery Deluge.
Well, and Raga Draga, Gorgut's boss. Whenever you cast a spell, if at least 7 mana was spent to cast it, you untap a creature and do the thing. So, like, they can do that. And so, yeah, so, like, up the Beanstalk, whenever you cast a spell, if at least 5 mana was spent to cast it, draw a card. That's a very reasonable type line, and this thing has 3 lines of flavor text. You cannot tell me you couldn't fit that on this. I'm just saying, like, adding another, like, 4 words to this, oh, we don't have room, get out of here with that. Like, I'm not hearing that. Like, yeah, it would have been very easy to make this the, like, limited uncommon role player in the Simic ramp deck in Wilds of Eldraine Limited that it was supposed to be, and not the format crushing super card draw engine that it turned out to be. Yeah.
Imagine the cards
and multiple
so powerful.
formats too.
Yeah.
Yeah, in modern,
Right?
like it's.
I mean,
so many
hello,
problems,
being
like,
able to cast your free Solitude and not be down in card advantage seems great to me.
Yeah, so I'm gonna Fury. I'm gonna 4 for 1 you off Fury, but I draw a card, so it's kind of like a 5 for 1. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
it's like the best fair card outside of Oko. It's probably like the best fair card of all time.
I love how you say fair card, because I got to be honest, when I'm playing against the domain deck and they get 2 of these down, it feels like they are cheating. It feels like they have whatever they need up their sleeve at all times, and there is nothing I can do. It feels miserable playing against this card. Like, this is one of those cards that at the end of a game I look back, and almost every time I'm like, that thing was a mistake. Like, every time. I have never been happy when this was on the field. Even if I have it on my side of the board, I feel bad for doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong. It does feel kind of nice to just be like, and I'll draw another one. Ooh, and I'll draw another one. But it's ridiculous. And the fact that it's better in multiples, like, it's not even legendary or anything, like, get out of here with this. It's ridiculous. That said, though, on the same vein as Up the Beanstalk, I want to talk about a card that is significantly worse, but I think could be good, and I've used it in my mono green Dino Shell. I've gotten to a point with a mono green aggressive deck in current standard where I've had to discard to hand size, and it is off of Tribute to the World Tree. Have you guys messed with this at all?
Card is legit.
It is. I completely agree.
But it's a legit card.
Yeah, if you're going mono green, this is because the biggest complaint that I always had whenever I was challenged to build a mono green list is every single time I look down at the options, I think, why am I only in green? There is nothing that is pulling me into staying to just green. Like, it will be faster if I add red. I will get more card advantage or better removal if I add black. Like, I can't come up with a reason, like, other than just to say I did, I can't just stay in green. And then I saw this thing. It's like, wait a minute. Because the casting cost on this, like in previous mono green lists, we've seen like the Werewolf Pack Leader and Old Growth Troll were like the linchpins. And they have exclusively green mana requirements. And so if you're not in mono green, you're not going to be casting them on curve every single game. And that's kind of a problem. Well, all of a sudden... And actually, we saw that with that mono green list where they were running Faceless Haven. It's funny, the green players, when Faceless Haven got banned, they were like, oh, thank goodness, I can go back to running only forests and make sure I'm always getting my creatures on curve. Like, it was ridiculous. But with this, all of a sudden, okay, on turn 3, if I can cast this out, now, all my creatures entering the battlefield, it's really great with the Dino package right now, because the vast majority of cards, when you cast them, you just draw an extra card. Like, you just get another card. But with your Lore Keepers... which become a very bad card in the late game. Now all of a sudden, that's a 1-mana 3/3. Like, that's a relevant body online. So, like, even that could be good. You know, I don't know. I think Tribute to the World Tree is one of those cards that it was so out of place when it first showed up. I think a lot of people forgot about it. And I think it could now really help elevate those Dino decks to a new level. That's really cool. Because, like, if you're playing Galta, you need to have a handful of stuff when Galta drops. And this can help you get that. So,
yeah,
I dig it.
I think it's better in the more, like, aggressive strategies, though, this card. Like, I don't want to say that the card isn't as great as it might be. I could just tell you, like, personally, I haven't been a fan of this because the having 3 green on turn 3 is harder if you're not just sticking to, like, a monocolored strategy.
100%.
Right? Yes, we have good mana, but I don't know that this is the 3-drop that you want to cast versus, like, a Topiary Stomper to just ramp that extra land to go from 3 to 5. But if you're playing that lower to the ground deck where your 1s and 2s and 3s get better in the long game because of this card, definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think if your deck has like 20 creatures in it that are going to trigger this thing, maybe it's worth a consideration. But the moment, and I agree, this is great for mono green. If you're in mono green, this absolutely fits. If you're in 2-color, but you are heavy green, like if you're in Groll with a primarily green, you can probably swing it, but there are going to be games when you're not going to be able to cast it until like turn 5, and then all of a sudden, like, it's not great. Like, it becomes pretty lame pretty fast in that scenario. So yeah, if you're going 3 colors, don't even worry about it. Like, don't, it's not a consideration. But yeah, 1 or like maybe 2, it's pretty solid. But yeah, no, I dig it. Yeah, I know. In any event, I've been playing this card a little bit into my aggressive green builds, and it, like, when it sticks and gets to do the thing, it feels really good. So, I don't know. I dig it. Cool. And if your opponent uses a Destroy Evil on that, this is Destroy Evil that's not hitting your, your Dracosar or whatever. Anyway.
I feel like we talked so much about how awesome Standard is. Like,
I know. We're actually...
I feel like it's infinite. Like, the possibilities right now in the format are just, like, amazing.
It feels like a good place to be brewing again. And it did not prior to Ixalan drop. Well, I mean, Eldraine helped a little, but I feel like Ixalan has enough stuff where the splash it has made is significantly bigger. And that makes me happy. Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Cool. So, yeah, I mean, if there aren't any other thoughts on Standard or any other, formats that Ixalan's shaking up, we do have a couple of other news topics that are out there. One, we have a new secret layer coming out, which I feel the need to touch on. They are changing this particular one is done a little bit differently, and it is actually themed around Tomb Raider of all things, which they're recently doing a lot more video game crossovers, which I think makes a lot of sense because gamers are gamers, right? So here we are. This particular one. Secret Layer X Tomb Raider. They have, the way they did it was they have one card for Lara Croft, which is a new legendary creature. And then they took a whole bunch of classic cards and reskinned them, kind of gave them what we've kind of come to, or at least I still think of as the Godzilla treatment, where they've rebranded them so they're now Tomb Raider themed, where they show moments from the game or very iconic kind of, Tomb Raider-esque moments, but they're reprints. And so I kind of like this. I would imagine from the back end perspective, it frees up design resources because they only had to make one card. And after that, it's all art assets and whatnot, which, okay, I know that's not, that's not free by any means, but it's just kind of neat. And on top of that, honestly, as a player, I'm just really glad that this isn't just 6 new cards that I need to keep track of in Commander. And now when somebody plays out the Heart of the Explorer, I can be like, wait, what's that? Search for Escanta. Oh, got it. Great. Okay. All right, cool. Like I have that one bookmarked. I can call that up pretty quickly. So I dig that. And so I thought that was a kind of a cool thing. And so the cards that they have, Heart of the Explorer is Search for Escanta. They have Storms of Yamatai, which is the Anger of the Gods. And that shows a boat getting absolutely wrecked, which I think is kind of appropriate. We also have the Grim Whisper, which is Bow of Nylea. Totek Spear, which is Shadow Spear. Any opportunity to reprint Shadow Spear, I am down for.
That's great reprint.
right? And then Kittes Sunken City, which is Academy Ruins. And then it also comes with a special treasure token. So, yeah. I mean, how do you guys feel about Lara Croft and these reprints coming to Magic?
It's very on theme with Ixalan, right? If we're going to be adventures and stuff, so I think it's kind of cool that they picked. Not only did they pick an IP that I would imagine would be somewhat popular with Magic the Gathering players, it's also like already on theme with where we're at with Ixalan. So it's cool. The card itself is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It feels like, and getting some other reprints is fine. Of course, it's cool. I mean, I think we're all just like used to this. That it's like, oh, do I like Tomb Raider? Do I not like Tomb Raider? Do I care about this? It's like, I'm excited just because the Lara Croft card itself is like pretty decent, and it's like another card that could maybe go in a Transformer deck, considering it has to do with legendary artifacts. So I mean, yeah, I probably might play this in my deck. But I don't really like. I'm not gonna go out of my way to get the card.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's still niche enough that the people who want it, and the people who don't can kind of just like ignore it. I think that's kind of where most Magic products are nowadays, outside of the quote unquote what we would call base sets, like the standard sets, like Ixalan, where obviously we all want to get in and look at all the cards. But it's cool. I think, yeah, it's crazy. They're doing Fallout, Assassin's Creed. I think is going to be soon, and we see Tomb Raider here. So I mean, it's pretty safe to bet that most video game categories that are not Nintendo are going to be kind of hit with full throttle here at some point.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I want my BioShock cards. I'm just going to say it now. I just want my BioShock cards or Dead Space cards. Let's just get some of that stuff in there. I think that'd be
in before
cool.
Star Wars.
Yeah, in before Star Wars.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get Star Wars. I think eventually, because
Probably. I mean,
I know Hasbro owns the rights to Star Wars toys. So I would imagine that at some point.
Oh wow, they do.
They are. I'm pretty sure they do.
I have no doubt lawyers
I could be
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of like thinking about things deep. That makes a lot more sense how they got Marvel, because I believe that they have the rights to Marvel toys, or like to be able to use their likenesses. You know, however all that stuff works. So, yeah, Carlo, to your point, I really think we'll get Star Wars eventually. I think it's just going to be like a major announcement. And I think it's going to be after probably Marvel and everything. They're just going to be like, here's Star Wars. But
yeah, probably
this ties into like, what's up?
No, right as the hype for Final Fantasy is dying down, they're going to be like, and now Star Wars. That's probably how it's going to go. Anyway,
But I think that all these big IPs and all this big stuff's going to still happen. And to touch on it still, it's, you know, if you like it, you like it. I mean, if you like Magic.
And if you don't like Lara Croft for some reason, you eventually will get the Universes In version of the Lara Croft cards in a future set. So, and I'm glad that they're continuing to do that too, because, you know, for some folks who are like, do I need this now to build my Lara Croft commander deck, or can I wait 2 sets from now and get a bunch of extra cards plus the equivalency variant? And I think that's fine, but that secret layer is fire. I mean, Academy Ruins plus the Lara Croft card plus Shadow Spear is worth the money in itself, right?
100%. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Secret layers are worth it. I think that's something that we don't talk about that much on the cast, but I think people are crazy for not buying secret layers, because for $40, it used to be $30. Think about that one. For $40, every single secret layer is worth it, because those special variants in each one, there's always at least one of those cards that's either like a good card, so that's worth something, or there's like a specific variant that's worth a lot.
They did kind of poop the bed with the Lord of the Rings secret layer one, though. The one where it was a bunch of commons and uncommons.
And they got the Realms of Banshee art. It could have been so good.
Flavor, that one was more like a flavor, but I agree with him. It should have been better.
They could have taken all of those exact same pictures and chosen different cards, and that secret layer would have been pretty good. The fact that they put them on straight up unplayable uncommons, that was a slap in the face to the fans, in my opinion. I thought that was ridiculous. So no, that one was a miss, but these are not. I feel like this set, even the cards that aren't necessarily money cards, like Anger of the Gods or Search for Escanta, like those aren't big money cards, but they're still perfectly good playable commander cards. Like, Yeah,
Yep.
if you want to do a themed, Lara Croft deck, just go in on it. This is a great place to start, Yeah. No, it's great. I honestly do think this is quite strong. Now, the Lara
Yeah,
Croft
definitely.
card itself, we've been kind of talking around it. It's a teamer legend, costs green, blue, red. And then for some reason, that just feels like I'm not mad at that. Like, just the quick glance color identity. Like, all right. I don't know Lara Croft very well. Like, I played a little bit of Tomb Raider, like, many years ago. It is one of those, it's up there with, like, Mortal Kombat as one of those franchises where every time a new one comes out, like, my immediate reaction is, wow, they're still making those? Like, no way. It's just, and yeah, I haven't actually played one in a very long time, but I understand the fans are out there. Obviously, people are buying it, otherwise they would have stopped. So, anyway, 3/4, First Strike Reach. 3 mana, First Strike Reach, 3/4. I'm already in. Whenever Lara Croft attacks, exile up to one target legendary artifact card or legendary land card from a graveyard and put a discovery counter on it. You may play a card from exile with a discovery counter on it this turn. And then she has Raid. At end of combat on your turn, if you attacked this turn, create a treasure token. That's insane. This is teamer
this card's so
value on a
powerful.
stick. Like,
So much text.
So much
on
text.
one card.
Every time, but there's more.
but there's more. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so you tell me you can't fit the again, that additional clause on up the beanstalk. I'm not hearing it.
Right.
Anyway, but yeah, so this thing is it's a house. And flavorfully though, like, so when she attacks, when she does the thing, when she actions, then you exile a legendary artifact or a legendary land. You either visit a majestic new place or you seek out some relic of the past that is awesome and legendary. You exile it, and then at the end of the turn, you get a treasure, because I'm sure she was looting stuff along the way, right? And then you can... I love the way it's templated, too, because you exile the thing, and it says you may play a card from exile with a discovery counter. It doesn't have to be that one that you just exiled. It could have been one that you exiled 2 turns ago. It could have been one you exiled 5 turns ago with a different, iteration of Lara Croft that has been, like, killed and recast since then. It doesn't matter. If something is in exile and it has a discovery counter on it, she sees it. Like, this is one of those cards that it is, like, you can tell there are designers who get these commander-specific cards that they need to make, and they're like, oh boy, I am so glad Standard doesn't have to deal with this. Let's freaking go. And they just push it to the limit. And when you're in a 4-player, 40-card, 100-card, 40-life environment, the limits are a little further, and you can really, you can go for it. So it's fun. Yeah. So if you're looking for teamer value, this thing is great, and you could build, you could have a lot of fun looking through all the different legendary lands that have been made over the years and finding which ones fit in here to get additional value. Oh, yeah. And then you're going to want to have some kind of self-mill action as well in the mix. Like, I don't know, it could be a fun deck to build, and a really cool deck to play, too, because you could just outvalue people big time.
Oh, for sure.
With this thing. Yeah.
This card's just, like, powerful, flavorful. We always get reminded why they're so good at this still, all the crossovers. Like, it's kind of hard to mess it up.
Right?
It really is hard for you to, the ultimate fan service all the time. That's what we want. That's exactly what we want. It's so easy to do it on a Magic card.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, and Magic is such a fantastic game because of that. Like, the color identities are very unique, and the mechanics all have, like, the graveyard, the library, the hand. There are, like, flavor tie-ins to all of these things, and so you can map these characters to the game in ways that are interesting and fun. So yeah, when it comes to Universe Beyond, let's freaking go. I'm all for it. And Tomb Raider's not my thing necessarily, but it looks like they did a good job with this one. So if it is your thing, you're gonna have a good day, and you're probably gonna pick this up, right? Yeah.
Either way, get Secret Layers. Secret Layers are good investment.
Secret Layers are generally good value.
You heard it here first.
I know, right? It's crazy. Good stuff. So there's one other thing I wanted to touch on before we call it a day here, and that is the Magic Cons for 2024. Now, we knew that there was a MagicCon coming up in February in Chicago, and I know a bunch of us are planning on being there, so definitely come check us out. We'll be rocking the MagicJank jerseys. Can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. So we knew that one was already on the horizon. That's going to be Pro Tour. What is it? The Murders at Karlov Manor is going to be happening at that event. Going to be very, very cool. Then there's also a MagicCon in Amsterdam, which is going to be Pro Tour Modern Horizons 3. And that's in late June, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, getting into the fall, we have another MagicCon in Las Vegas. Because who doesn't love Vegas, baby?
On Halloween weekend.
Let's go. Oh, that's going to be so... Book your hotels for that now. Because that's going to be a thing.
Secure the penthouse.
Lock it down. People will be fighting for those rooms. In any event. But yeah, so no, that's the plan. So we've got, notably, we only have 3 MagicCons in 2024 that have been announced at this point. We had 4 this year in 2023. So it's interesting that they've made that change. And as a result, too, there's going to be a Pro Tour Thunder Junction, that doesn't have a venue established yet. We genuinely have no idea where that is going to be.
We don't know what event it is either. We don't know if it's going to be some new big flashy event, right? Maybe it's like the Ultimate Con.
Maybe, or maybe it's going to be some super exclusive thing at a Marriott conference room, and I highly doubt that. They're going to do something big, I'm sure. But we don't know what it is yet. We don't know what that is. But there will be a Pro Tour for Thunder Junction, and it'll happen somewhere. And so that's a TBD, which is going to be very interesting to see how that unfolds. Because right now the MagicCons have been, I was fortunate enough to go to the 3 ones that took place in the States this year. And they all had a very similar vibe. And I saw a lot of the same people in a bunch of them, which is always delightful. And they're a party, man. They're absolute bangers. And just being surrounded by Magic players, I gotta just, I don't know, for speaking from my own personal experience, you're just surrounded by your people. At least I was anyway. It's like, oh, these are all people I want to hang out with. And I get to this weekend. This is awesome. So yeah, it's great. I'm a big fan of these, and I'm very excited that we know now what it looks like. It is interesting that we only have 2 in the States scheduled so far, which honestly, I think I'm okay with that. I'm not mad that we only have 2 in the States. I'm very surprised that there isn't one, there isn't a 4th somewhere else, Because this past year we had, I believe it was Barcelona was the one in Europe. Yep. But as far as I know, we haven't had any in Asia. There haven't been any in South America, at least in recent years.
No Latin American countries, still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that seems like a missed opportunity, and I'm curious. And maybe, who knows, maybe Pro Tour Thunder Junction is going to take place, in Brazil or Argentina or something. Who knows? That'd be rad. I'd be all for that. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Listen, if Taylor Swift can go to Argentina, so can Magic the Gathering.
Absolutely. I see no issue with this.
100%.
100%. Let's make it happen, everybody. So, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see. So how do you guys feel about this lineup for the conventions? What are your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, we're going to Chicago. Right.
It's right down the street for me. I think I'm going to take the train. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely be making plans for that ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to be Chicago in the mid of winter. And not only have I never been to Chicago before, but I do rather enjoy the cold weather. So I'll be with my peoples. And so I'm ready for that. They already announced the lineup of content creators, right, Ham? You and I get to go as featured content creators, along with ePhilly and Numbskull from our team.
Heck yes.
So that means hopefully we get to host another creator table like we did at Vegas.
Oh my goodness, that was so cool.
Who knows who will draft with us this time? Last time Melissa DeTora stopped by, right, and drafted with our crew, and it was a good time.
Cool. Absolutely.
So I'm looking forward to that. I understand the Creator Arena is coming back again for MagicCon Chicago, and it was a blast in Vegas. Tons of stuff going over there. IHOP sponsored the last one, right? So who knows if there's going to be more collabs coming this time. But yeah, it was rather enjoyable. I think I haven't decided if it's a peeve yet. But the Amsterdam MagicCon is in the summer. It's in late June. Mm-hmm. And the reason I haven't understood if it's a peeve yet of mine is because I don't know if lots of Europeans take holiday during that time, which makes it convenient for a European GP or sorry, MagicCon. But for anybody else to travel to Europe in the summer, it's super expensive. And I'm not just talking about from the United States, right? As soon as they announced Amsterdam, of course, I do what I do, and that is to look up how much tickets would cost. And if you were to try to get a ticket now for Amsterdam out of Philly or New York, talking from being on the East Coast, it's like $1,600 a round trip ticket. Right? As opposed to, how much I paid for my flight to go to Las Vegas? It was less than $200 round trip, right?
Dang.
And granted, we're talking domestic versus international travel.
Sure.
I totally get that. But that's a lot of money. And granted, like hotel space is cheaper there, right? And reasonable. But the plane ticket, like $1,600 out of pocket to travel from the U.S. to get to Amsterdam, is a lot unless you like start saving all of your monies now to try to make that work and to make that
But it'll
happen.
be more expensive too as time goes on. As you get closer to there, it's going to be
right as people
even
start
more
booking
expensive.
vacations, right? I mean, and Amsterdam isn't the most touristy spot, but it definitely is a desired location.
Sure.
So I get all of it. I wish they would maybe have swapped the European MagicCon with Las Vegas, right? Done Las Vegas in the summer. I know people don't like to sweat, but hey, it's Las Vegas. Because it would have been considerably cheaper price-wise.
Sure.
So for folks to travel. But again, like I said, maybe not as convenient for Europeans. So totally get it. I'm just hoping they give that consideration last time, because my understanding is when it was in Barcelona, it wasn't cheap either, right, for folks to travel. So just hopefully they give that consideration next time.
That's a good shout. It'll be interesting to see if that changes in the future or not. Yeah, and I understand, honestly, part of the big deal I understand the main reason that they spread these events out is so that people who are in those locations have something that is easy to get to, so like, yeah, with like Barcelona last year, I knew full well that wasn't in the cards. I didn't even look up flights because I was just like, I know that one's not going to happen, so how can we make Minneapolis happen? Like I just focused on the ones I could do. And this is one of those, when I looked at it, it's like, okay, Amsterdam is the one I am absolutely not doing. Got it. Which is a bummer because I'm sure that's going to be a good time. But, like, all right, there we go. Because yeah, it's incredibly expensive. But as a result, though, if you are a fan of Magic in Europe, all of a sudden that's very reasonable. Whereas, flying out to Las Vegas might be a bit, problematic for you. So.
Yeah, I'm sure they're looking at it the opposite way.
Yeah. So
I'm excited for another Vegas. I'm just excited for events. Events are always a great time.
Absolutely.
And I think it's cool that they're still doing the MagicCons. I think the MagicCons are great for the community, great for everybody, great for the game. As much as I know people miss GPs, I like these more than GPs. So, the more cons for me, the more cons, the better. For me, 3 isn't enough. I want more. And I mean, yeah, even if there were more, it might take away some of the specialness, but I don't think it does, because when you go hang out with people, it's just as special every time. So
100%. Oh my goodness.
More MagicCons, the better. I think it's great. I think in terms of the cons and stuff like that, I think the game is still moving in a great direction.
Yeah.
Because they're still really, really popular and people still love them. Like there's a hunger for the gathering.
Oh my goodness, yes.
I think tournaments are cool, but so is like getting to hang out with your friends. And I think that that's like the biggest aspect and the biggest appeal of these con events, is that you get to hang out with your friends, you get to hang out with your favorite streamers, you get to hang out with some of our other peers that we know, that we get to hang out, finally get to meet in real life, and it's a cool experience. I can't, it's incredible. It's very like fulfilling. Like it feels accomplishing when you go there. Whereas like before, like when you went to like a GP, a lot of the time you're going to a GP to play and you didn't win, so felt bad.
I mean,
whereas now it's like whatever, right? Like I don't know.
Yeah,
now there's way more things to look forward to.
It makes me hopeful that since they only announced 3 MagicCons, that means there's some other event on the horizon that's yet to be announced. Especially if they are considering bringing back higher level competitive play that they are going to sponsor, right?
Oh my goodness.
Because, in just talking from a standard point of view, y'all, as much as it's been said that they want to revitalize standard, we need a tournament series in paper and online to bring it back, right? And 3 MagicCons for the year ain't doing that. So give me another competitive tournament series outside of the whole regional championship qualifier, regional championship realm, whether that's Grand Prix or sponsoring TOs to run higher level standard tournaments. That has to be done this year. So I'm being hopeful that it's done sooner rather than later. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because in Chicago, they announced for MagicCon Chicago there was going to be a large standard open at the event. And I seriously was considering, like, I was seriously interested, like, okay, can I put a standard deck together, get a bunch of reps in with it, and, like, take a shot at this thing and, like, see if I can win some money playing Magic.
Yep.
Like, that seems like a really cool idea. But the more that I think about it now, especially now that I was given a creator badge, because I feel like that would be kind of a jerk move, to pivot away. But I'm realizing, like, if I'm gonna be there at the convention hall, I don't want to spend hours of it at tournament tables. Like, I want to be able to mingle. I want to be able to get in commander games with other people. I want to be able to, shake hands, hand out, stickers and, cards, and get to meet people. Because one, it's just networking, right? Meet other creators and all that jazz. But then on top of that, it's the gathering, like you're saying. I want to, connect with the community. That's what I feel like that's what the event's for. And so the idea of shortchanging that for a tournament, that's a bummer. But if there was some other cash tournament going on within a reasonable drive of me on some weekend, in the next few months, like, all of a sudden that, an old school GP, like, if they give us that kind of an idea, all of a sudden, I don't know, for somebody like me who wants to really get going on his Spike era, and really go for, try to take the shot at the Pro Tour slip up on that hill for a couple years. Like, I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I don't want to lose the community in the process, and the fact that right now they're kind of, if you want to compete at these high level events, a lot of them are at these conventions, and it's like, well, that's kind of lame. I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
you kind of have to pick a day if you want to, like, do it, right? Like, I think in the 3 days that you're given at the convention center, however many days, I think that you almost have to pick one day where you specifically go out of your way to play in those events.
Sure.
And in all honesty, unless you're playing in the Pro Tour, in the Worlds, you're not going to get the notoriety.
No, of course not.
From just playing some side events. And I think that's, like, the main reason why it's like, why would you want to do that when you're right? Like, you have way more better things to do than just play F&M, I guess, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. It's like, I feel like I want there to be more, and maybe there are more opportunities than I realize in my local community, and I just need to open my eyes, but I feel like some of those being sponsored by the mothership and being, held up, would be really cool.
But to your point though, Ham, like, the golden days of, like, paying attention to Star City Games tournament series and seeing decks perform well week to week to week. What was the rock, paper, scissors of the format, for example? You being able to spike all of those tournaments, right? You watching Jerry Thompson top 8 how many Star City Games opens, to you reading Jerry Thompson's articles, right? How you can play like Jerry Thompson, and I'm just using him as an example, right?
Sure.
And how you can replicate that the next week is what's currently missing from competitive Magic in general. There's nothing. There's no level like that. Yes, you can go and watch, like, a video that a content creator who's on Team Channel Fireball make a video on Standard, right?
Sure, and that's
but
great.
But there's no tournament that person's playing in the meantime to show you that concept is what's needed on the competitive level, because there's no results back to back to back. Magic Online leagues, they're fine, right? Magic Arena results from what's performing well on the ladder, or hello, like, can we get Arena fixed so we can have the Hollywood Pizza box
Please.
tournaments for those results week to week to week,
Please.
right? Like,
Yep.
that needs to exist, right?
100%.
In order to keep all of this relevant, both from a content creator point of view and also to continue to allow Standard to shine.
Yes.
100%.
All of that,
definitely
yes.
missed the tournaments. I think that with the pizza box tournaments, that was definitely helping Standard specifically, especially still staying alive in an online capacity. And I agree. I think the competitive Magic scene is very, very hungry for tournaments and very, very hungry to play these cards that we've had, that we've spent a lot of money on, and we want to jam them and all this other stuff. And I think that's definitely true. I think it's another year where I think the Magic's going to continue to grow, and we're going to hopefully see more events as we continue in the post quote unquote COVID era.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where things are going. Another announcement that was made recently that we can definitely touch on. There is a Twitch Rivals scheduled for December 4th for Magic Arena. And so we talked about there's a bug that's been going on for a number of weeks now that causes problems when people try to direct challenge each other. It will be very interesting to see if it is fixed by then, because that is a very high profile arena tournament that Wizards is promoting. And we'll see, because I have a feeling it's going to be a great event if the system works. But
yeah, we need
we'll
it to work.
We'll see.
We need these events to work. Like,
Yeah,
these
we just
events
need them to work.
really
That's
are
yeah.
a big deal for the community, especially the pizza box tournaments. Like, they're free to play with cash prizes. Like, there's not many other people in
Right.
tournament organizations that are willing to do that, and I think it's like a really important aspect of the community and to the game in general. And if Twitch Rivals doesn't, Twitch Rivals has the same problems, then it really just needs to get fixed, and it already needs to be fixed, because
Yeah, it's been too long already. Yeah.
you guys' content suffers, obviously my content suffers, and the tournament scenes suffer. Where's the competitive Standard scene? Well, since there's no pizza box, we're talking dailies. Are we really gonna? Do we really care
Yeah,
about
I mean, the
dailies?
ladder
Anyone can
is where.
5-0.
Yeah, it's.
Anyone can 5-0 a daily. I mean, I don't even play MTGO. I can fire out MTGO right now, and I can probably 5-0 a daily. Like, it's just not.
Yeah.
They need to fix the game, and I think thanks to Twitch Rivals, hopefully that gets done.
Yep. Here's hoping. They definitely
Sooner than
have.
later.
They have a very pressing incentive, a catalyst for getting that fixed, that they got skin of the game now in a way that honestly they always did, but I don't know that they realized how many people. I know I've seen people saying that, like, I'm just not playing this game until I can play with my friends again. And it's like, well, that's fair. Like, and I've seen a lot of people saying that. It's like, I'm not buying any of the new cards. Like, I'm not buying any of the new packs because I can't play with my friends anyway. So why? Because I think more people were doing that than they realized. Yeah. Anyway. But yes. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so Tournament Magic is awesome. We love it. Make it happen, folks, and get it going. If you're out there and you're thinking, hey, I would like to run a tournament, that would be super fun. We would like you to do that just so there are more tournaments. But no, it is probably not going to be a profitable venture. Just especially not at first. Anyway, yeah. But it would be awesome, though, because this game is a beautiful game, and we want to play it in every way possible. There are so many amazing ways right now to play, like Commander or play casual events with friends, and that's awesome. That needs to exist, too. But there is a time and a place to frickin' shuffle up your burn deck and be all like, I'm going to just destroy you by turn 3. And
Lightning Bolt Pass.
Exactly. Yeah, Mountain Bolt Pass. Like... I know it's an instant. I don't care. This is going to your face. Deal with it. Yeah. Lava Spike for the win, baby. In any event, thank you so much for checking out this edition of the MagicJank podcast. We definitely appreciate it. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and go around the horn. Where can folks find you out there on the internet? So Hollywood, yeah, let's start with you this time. But let the people know where can they find you? Yeah, what can they find when they get there?
You can find me on twitch.tv/HollywoodPizza. I am kind of just not gonna have a schedule for now, so it's gonna be a little bit sporadic. But usually I'm on in the mornings, around 5 a.m. till about like 6:30, 7ish. Just jamming some standard lately, getting some videos done for the YouTube, where you can find me at PizzaBoxMTG on YouTube and on Twitter, at PizzaGoif and at PizzaBoxMTG as well. Got a couple accounts there, but overall, mostly just been trying to get back into the streaming game and just a content creation game, and I'd be appreciative if you were there to join me.
Rock on, dude. Thank you. And Carlo, how about you, man? Where can people find you, and what can they expect to find when they get there?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Threads, because that still exists. You can find me at cfavretto_jr on all of those platforms. On Twitch in particular, I do create content that is more community focused, and so you will see me playing like viewer decks all the time and climbing the ladder, doing that, battles, the whole nine when the battles work. Yeah. So you can check that out over on my channels, and yeah, look forward to creating a bunch of content.
Heck yeah. Love it. And you can find me, twitch.tv/hammox42. I also do a number of collaborations, and the best place to look for those is actually over on my YouTube channel, my independent YouTube channel. If you go to just my homepage, I have a number of other channels linked. If you see one of those channels linked, there's a good chance that I'm making content on that channel. And you may look at that and go, holy cow, really? Yes, really. And and if you may be wondering, man, this channel doesn't have any new videos on it. What's up with that? Well, it's because I'm doing all those other things. But in any event, yeah, but it's a ton of fun.
Won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop, baby. Gotta make the content.
Won't stop.
I've had so many days where I'm just like, man, I'm feeling tired. Why am I feeling tired? And I think back to like all the different things. It's like, oh, maybe I was talking to a camera for 10 hours today. I need to go take a nap. Anyway. But yeah, anyway, but it's a blast. I absolutely adore it. So yeah, so you definitely go check out all those things. It'd be super cool. We have links to every, all the members of this podcast who are here. We have their link trees and all that jazz in the description, as well as folks who are kind of in our rotation and other team members as well. Definitely go drop them all a follow. They're all lovely people. We would love to see you in all of those streams, because just do it. They're awesome. Everybody's awesome. Everybody's awesome, and you're awesome too. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one, everybody.
Catch you next time, everybody.